Getting set to live stream on YouTube, so as soon as it goes live there, I'll start the broadcast.
All right, let me open up my chat.
All right, we're live on YouTube, so I'm going to start the broadcast now.
Okay.
All right, well, let's start it, and we're seeing attendees come in.
Yay.
Everybody,
Hello.
welcome to our panel, the Art of Storyboards. It's really great to have everybody here. My name is Davey. I'm the manager of membership programs. And we're going to be waiting a little bit until a lot more people flow in. So just going to allow a few minutes to get people to flow in. Our event did cap out today, so we're expecting a lot of people. We're also live streaming this on YouTube for the first time. So hello, YouTubers.
Hi, yes, mabuhay and welcome. My name is Christine and I'm part of the programming department for the Comic-Con Museum and San Diego Comic Convention. For those of you who are logging into Zoom, once the panel officially starts, we are going to turn off the chat just so that we're not having a running dialogue at the same time as our creators are discussing some topics. So, but you will still be able to leave questions using the Q&A function. So if you look at your Zoom controls, there should be a Q&A button, or yeah, I guess button. And just click on there and leave a question, and we'll do our best near the end of the panel to pose as many of the questions received to our panelists. Thanks, Katrina. Until then, go ahead and let us know in the chat where you're all joining from, and we'll begin shortly.
Awesome. Yeah. Please, I think we're getting a lot of people from around the world. We've done different kinds of events like this with our members of the museum. So we're doing charter membership for the Comic-Con Museum right now. We're doing different kinds of member-only events and tours. So we have members all around the world, and it's really cool to see everybody like tuning in from New York, Florida, of course San Diego. There's people who tune in from Europe, Australia. So type in the chat where you're from and greet everybody. We're truly an international community here, so it's
I saw someone saying that, woo, Philippines, hello. Someone from Oakland, someone from New Zealand, someone from India.
Awesome.
Chula Vista. Oh, so thanks for joining, everyone.
For joining in, I just wanted to introduce myself. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm Davey. I'm the manager of membership programs for the Comic-Con Museum and tonight's event operator. So as a reminder, tonight's panel is a Zoom webinar format and simultaneously streaming on our YouTube channel. Hello, everybody on YouTube. This means you will only see the video feeds of our hosts, panelists, and sign language interpreter. For those friends and family who wanted to join but couldn't, please let them know. We're recording this and it will be available on our YouTube channel. Everybody on YouTube right now, you can go ahead and share the link on your social media, get more viewers. This is going to be a really, really great program. We're really excited to have this tonight, so it's going to be awesome.
Thank you, Julie, our interpreter, for joining and for providing your services for this panel. Yay.
I'm going to share a quick little screen here. It's to help optimize the experience for you guys. So when we've done different kinds of live streams in the past, we've noticed that there's some buffering issues for users on their end. We just want to make sure you guys have a great streaming quality. So if you're in the same household, if you want to tune in on the same device, that'll be awesome. If you have any applications open that are taking some bandwidth, if you want to close those out, it'll create a better experience for you guys. And it'll help limit the high bandwidth activities in your room. And Christine was saying earlier that we
Sorry.
we have the Q&A button to submit questions to the panel. So once we get to the Q&A part, there's a little Q&A icon that you guys can all see and set and ask your questions there. And we will be closing the chat during the event, but it's open now. So let us know where you're from, guys. We have an international audience, international community. Of course, we're streaming from San Diego, but type in the chat your name and where you're from. It'll be awesome to see where everyone's tuning in from.
Let us know if if you're not a high schooler or a student yourself. Let us know if your household, you've brought your kids and have them sitting with you and watching. That'd be great to see, and say hi to them. Also, hey, Davey, is there a more direct link to the live stream that we can share in the chat?
Yes, let me grab that right now. Hey, KC from Jersey. Montreal, that's awesome. Super cool.
Wow.
All right, I'm gonna paste the streaming link. So
hi from Egypt, Nada. Hello.
That is the direct streaming link. So if you guys want to share that with different friends and family who might be interested in joining this panel and seeing everything what it's all about, go ahead and share it. I'll reshare it in a few minutes, but yeah. We got
Hi, Aiden. Thanks for joining.
All right. I think we're going to be waiting just a couple more minutes. We're almost ready.
Oh, that's great. And thanks for joining, Jim. And we're really excited. Our panelists are super excited to share their experiences about being part of storyboarding and how that's evolved to other roles that they've reached and accomplished in their mediums. Yes, Nate asked, our mics are automatically muted, correct? And yes, everyone's mic is automatically muted.
Exactly. So for everyone who's joining in right now, you will only see video feeds of our hosts, panelists, and our sign language interpreter. And everyone else's audio and video are automatically muted. So if you're an attendee, you don't have to worry about muting and unmuting your mic. This is a webinar feature on Zoom. So yeah, you will only see our hosts and panelists. We will be recording this, so you can view it at your pleasure after this, anytime you want. We have a Q&A feature that you can use during our Q&A portion. It's that little Q&A box with those little speech bubbles. We will be closing the chat during the panel, so we want to keep it open now, so we want to know where everyone's from. I think a few more folks have been joining, so guys, keep it coming. Where you guys from? It'll be really interesting to know. We got someone from Las Vegas. Awesome. Trisha from Las Vegas. We got some Anaheim, Chula Vista. I grew up in Chula Vista, went to Chula High School. We got San Jose, Canada, Philly, Emeryville. Yeah, welcome everybody. We're so glad to have you. I think we should be getting set to get started pretty soon. Christine, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know what? I think we can. Okay. We've got a little bit to go, and I think people can continue to come in when we get started. So yeah. Hi from La Mesa. Oh, La Mesa. Okay.
I guess for everybody who just joined, just to kind of go through the streaming experience again. We've done some events in the past, and as you see on my shared screen, if you're in the same household, if you want to tune in on the same device, that will help limit high bandwidth. You can close any unneeded applications, like if you're like watching Netflix or listening to Spotify at the same time. If you want to close that out just for now, it'll really improve the streaming quality of the Zoom panel. Sometimes we have buffering issues, but yeah, you can close that out. We will be recording everything, and you can view it as your leisure on our Comic-Con Museum YouTube page. So feel free to watch it at any time you want after this. So I think without further ado,
we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone who's joining. On behalf of the Comic-Con Museum, I'm excited to welcome you to the Art of Storyboarding, a celebration of FilAm creators in the arts, a panel coordinated with the LA-based nonprofit Search to Involve Filipino Americans, also known as SIPA. It is also my honor to introduce to you Erwin Magbanua, Principal Librarian of the Chula Vista Public Library, and tonight's moderator. Let's try that again. Erwin?
Oh, there he was, and he just disappeared.
There he is.
There he goes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
You're all good, Erwin.
All right, well, thank you, Christine and Davey. Good evening, everyone. My name is Erwin Magbanua. I'm a principal librarian at the Chula Vista Public Library here in San Diego, California. And I will be your moderator this evening. Thank you to the wonderful staff at the Comic-Con Museum and SIPA for bringing us this special event. And thank you all for attending. It is Filipino American History Month, and it's such an honor and pleasure to kick off this month with these 5 outstanding FilAm artists here with me today, who will be talking about the art of storyboarding. Storyboarding or story art is something I think many people may not know is an important part of bringing your favorite animated films to life. We will be talking about what being a story artist is, as well as the experience of being a FilAm in the animation industry, and hopefully other cool stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our distinguished guests, starting with, let's start with Ian Abando. Ian attended the Art Center College of Design and is currently a storyboard artist and designer in animation, film, and commercials. He was a story artist for such films as Despicable Me 2, Minions, and he is currently directing a series in development at Netflix. Very cool. Welcome, Ian.
Thanks for having me.
Next is Gabby Capili. She was born in San Francisco and currently resides in Los Angeles. She studied at CalArts and currently works at Walt Disney Animation Studios, and has created a wonderful series of animated shorts called All My Friends, as well as a cool interactive short called Dennis the Dinosaur. I saw that. That was pretty awesome. I loved it. Welcome, Gabby.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
And next up, we have Jay Oliva. Jay is an executive producer, director, and showrunner for animated series, as well as the founder and CEO of Lex and Otis Animation Studio. Jay has a long and distinguished career in animation as a story artist and a director, including directing The Dark Knight Returns 1 and 2, and the new 52 animated DC movies. He has also worked as a storyboard artist for live action films like Man of Steel. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and represent Filipino Americans.
All right, next we have Bobby Rubio. Bobby is a story artist for Pixar and was born and raised in San Diego. He was a story artist for films such as Up, Incredibles 2, and Avatar: The Last Airbender animated series, just to name a few. He made his directorial debut with Pixar's animated short Float on Disney Plus last year, breaking new ground as the first Pixar work to feature Filipino American animated characters. Welcome, Bobby.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, and it's nice to be representing San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay, and finally we have Josie Trinidad. Josie attended UCLA, studied character animation at CalArts, and is currently director of development at Disney Animation. She has worked on a number of Disney and Pixar features, serving as a story artist on Tangled and The Princess and the Frog, and served as head of story for Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet. Welcome, Josie. All right, so we have here an incredible range of talent represented, from those just emerging in the industry to seasoned veterans. So although I stated your current titles, oops, lost you there. So I stated your current titles. I'd like to know, just go around and talk about your current role, what you do in your job, or in your current role as a story artist, and just kind of go into more detail. So I'd like to start with Josie. What do you do and what is your role?
Josie, we can't hear you.
Oh. Don't know. Okay, we'll go around. We'll go around. All right. So, all right. We can go around. So Jay, go ahead and what do you do in your in your current role, and what do you do as a story artist?
Well, as a storyboard artist, basically what you do is the writer writes the script, and usually we're the first person to actually plan out the shots. Director will of course, have ideas, but they bring in a storyboard artist like all of us, and they basically we plot out the shots, everything from the choreography, the camera move, the acting, everything, and we draw it all out, and then we run it by the director, and then that's usually what the next step is. From there, it goes to all the different departments. So it goes to the design department, it goes to the the actors and everything. So it's all dependent on what we kind of lay out. We're kind of like the unsung heroes of the films because we're pretty much the first directors to kind of give the story life after the writer has basically written the script.
Okay. And I guess, Josie, are you back to, is your audio back on? No? Still no? Okay. No. All right, well, all right.
Oh, there we go.
Hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your role, your what you do currently, and and what you do in your current title.
So I started as a story artist and did everything that Jay was saying. You visualize the script, work with the directors and the writers. And then I was promoted to be a head of story. And that's the person that just supervises the story crew of about, 8 to 10 story artists. And then you're a liaison between the director and the story crew. And right now I'm in development. I'm working potentially on a future feature film, and I'm working with a writer and a small group of story artists and biz dev folks to, come up with an idea for a film.
Okay. All right. So let's, Ian, can you talk a little bit more about your role right now and what you do?
I think Ian froze.
I think he froze. Okay, so let's move over to Bobby.
Hey,
Bobby, what are you doing? What are you doing now? What do you do?
I'm a story artist at Pixar, and I'm working on a movie
Yeah.
that I cannot talk about right now.
Oh, okay.
But it's pretty. I'm glad Jay explained what story artists are, and because we don't have to do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
I know.
So, okay.
Yeah,
And Ian, what are you? It looks like you're. Are you back? Okay.
Am I back? Am I?
yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah, so I'm storyboarding on an adult animated series, and I'm also directing on a unannounced kid series coming up. And
and
So-
all right. Gabby, what are you doing? What do you do?
I'm a story apprentice right now. So I just started in the industry and I'm training to become a story artist so I can do the job that everyone's talking about.
Very cool. All right, so we all love origin stories of our heroes. So I'm going to ask each of you what your origin story was as a story artist, and I'll start with Gabby. What made you decide to become a story artist?
To be a story artist in particular, I didn't really decide. It kind of just happened. I was an artist growing up, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I ended up taking this really circuitous route where I went to UCSB for marine biology for a couple of years. I didn't like it. So then I switched and majored in something completely different. I majored in English Lit. I found out about animation and decided I wanted to do it. So I ended up moving to France to learn to draw, and then applying to CalArts, going through CalArts, and then all 4 years I kind of didn't really know what I was going to settle on. And then in my 4th year, I figured out I like making comics, I like writing. Storyboard artists do both of those things, but just on a film, essentially. So that's how I settled into it.
Nice. Hey, Bobby, what's your origin story? How'd you get into how'd you become a story artist?
I wanted to be a comic book artist. I went to Comic-Con every year in San Diego growing up, and I actually wanted to go to New York to study comic book art in the university there, the Joe Kubert School. But my mom was like, "No way, you're staying in California." So I went to CalArts, and I started in the animation program. From there, I got the internship to Disney, and but that was as an animator because I wanted to be an animator. And I finally made it on Treasure Planet. And then after Treasure Planet, 2D kind of went away, and it was like I had to go another route. And I went to and Disney helped me out, and I went to the story internship in Disney, and then they let me go. But the good thing is from there I got a job at Avatar: The Last Airbender at Nickelodeon, in which that was amazing. And then I started to love storyboarding, and I wanted to pursue that even more. And then Pixar eventually called, and so I went to Pixar.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And let's see let's ask Ian, what's your origin story? How'd you become a story artist?
So I went to Art Center because I wanted to be a comic book artist. I had heard from relatives that it was a good school. I liked doing sequential art, but then I found out that it doesn't make a lot of money, and that I actually I'd never actually done comics personally for myself. And so I was going a character design route, more maybe like an art director. I was sort of following what everyone else at the school was doing. And in my last year in school, I teamed up with some people, and we worked on a short together. And that's when I like fell backwards into storyboarding. And I filled the role on the team because they needed an illustrator at the time, and I hated it. Or very first CTN, I showed up with, my rough storyboards and like really kind of crappy personal assignments in a portfolio. And a lot happened at that convention. I had a job offer on the first season of Adventure Time, and things like that. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something here, even though I hate it. And I think the more that I got into it, I realized that, even when I go to museums and look at art and all that, I feel like I've always been drawn to sequential art. I've always been drawn I couldn't explain why I liked movies, but I think I was more drawn to storytelling than I was the grunt work of design. And I think that's I just sort of followed that path, and then here I am.
All right, Jay, how did you start in?
Well, my story is a little bit similar to Bobby's and Gabby's. So, as you can tell, I'm Filipino, so I have Asian parents, and my parents said, "Don't go into art. There's no money in art." So I said, "Okay, I'll be a doctor." So I went to school to be a pediatrician. Well, I went to I went to Loyola Marymount. I was a biology major, hoping to be a doctor. But along the way, so growing up, I was a kid of the 90s, 80s, and 90s. So I grew up with comic books. I loved comic books. I remember I vaguely thought of the idea of going into animation when I first saw the making of Empire Strikes Back, right? The stop motion. And I was like, this is amazing. And then I realized how tedious it was. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. So anyways, I was in college, and I took all of the communication arts requirements classes because I love film, but I never wanted to be in film because I hated being in front of camera, and I was stage fright. But I loved film. My dad's a big John Wayne Western fan, so I always watched a lot of those films. And so there was actually a class that was for animation. And here's the thing: I never wanted to be an animator, never, right? Because making a duck walk or doing cloth animation was like the last thing I wanted to do. But I took the class because growing up, I didn't have any art teachers. They had cut all of the art classes from my schools. And even when I did have art classes when I was in high school, the teacher said, "You're too advanced to take the class." And I was like, oh, this is an easy A. I could have taken this. And so I taught myself how to draw from I would freeze frame like cartoons on my Betamax, and then I would take a piece of paper and I would trace the screen, as well as go to my local library and I would get those, Draw 50 Animals by Lee James, where it's 2 circles and then suddenly a fully rendered horse, and you just had to figure out how to draw that. So anyways, I taught myself how to draw. Never really thought of going into it professionally, mostly because, my parents kept telling me there's no money in art. But luckily I had done a student film in my animation class, and that what the director over at the Marvel Films on the Spider-Man animated series that was on Fox back in the day saw my storyboards. I had done these storyboards, and they were just thumbnails. And honestly, my professor, who was Van Partible, the guy who created Johnny Bravo, I remember he came into class one day, and we were doing, I believe it was in between Anticipation, it was this tea kettle thing, and I think it was before that was like the asterisk, right? It is the exercises. And I remember he spent, I don't know, maybe 10, 30 minutes just talking about storyboards. And I was like, okay. And I just was like, I'm never gonna do that, right? I just filed it away. And like along with X sheets, if anybody knows what X sheets are, like I just thought, when I learned it in school, I'm like, I'm never gonna do this. And so the storyboards I had done for my student film, he had seen in my portfolio, and he said, would you like a job? And I was like, okay, right? But it was one of those things where it changed my life. I came in as a revisionist, so I came in the exact same position that Gabby came in. I didn't even know there was a storyboard position. I thought you had to be an animator to be in animation, right? And so I remember this was my second year in college, and so I dropped out after that year, because I thought to myself, well, I think I could be an okay I could be an okay doctor, but I think I could be really good at this. And I remember starting as a storyboard revisionist, and I remember the director, I was always, because as a revisionist, you basically fix storyboards. Like the storyboard artist turns it in and you have to fix it before it ships to overseas to be animated. So you're the last line of defense. And I remember I was fixing this particular storyboard artist's work over and over, to the point where I'm like, why do you keep hiring this guy? And my director was like, well, there's not a lot of storyboard artists out there that can do, at least at this point, it was action adventure. This was 1996. And he said, it's easier for us to just get the work out there and hire somebody to fix it. And so I was like, okay. I was like, well, is there a test you take to be a storyboard artist? Is there like an LSAT, MCAT or something? And he's like, no. He's like, you just have to know film. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, does anybody teach a class? Nobody taught classes back then. So what he did is, I said, well, I'd love to learn how to do this. And he's like, okay, well, this is what you do. And he gave me a Xerox copy of the 5 C's of cinematography, right? And at the time it was out of print. He gave that to me, and he said, read this. And then he went over to his pile of storyboards that was done. Spider-Man had been around for quite a few seasons at that point, and he gave me a stack of storyboards. Like it was like maybe 15 or 20 storyboards of the best storyboard artists from that show. And he says, read this book, study these storyboards. So I was like, all right. So for the next 2 months, I just poured over it. I read the book, I looked at storyboards, and then what happened, and it was like riding a bike, right? At some point my brain clicked, and I realized for any particular, whenever Spider-Man was in trouble, downshot. Whenever the Hobgoblin or somebody was like, I have you now, Spider-Man, ha, 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 upshot. And I realized that there was a language to film. There's a language to the shot that was kind of decoded. I never realized that. And so from that point on, I became a sponge. And I think in about 6 months since I became a storyboard artist, I did my first storyboard for the show. They liked it. And then the following year, I was hired as a board artist at Sony. I was doing Extreme Ghostbusters. And then I worked at Sony until there was a position opening. And this is how you kind of move up. I remember some of the board artists became directors during one of our seasons. And so, of course, I went to my producer. I said, how do you become a director? I didn't know you. I was like, do you have to join the Directors Guild of America? Is there an MCAT? Is there an LSAT? Is there a test? And he's like, no. He's like, you just have to be good as a storyboard artist. I'm like, he's like, if you turn in your boards and 90% or 95% of it don't get changed, you're ready to be a director. I was like, I'm like, how much do they make? And he told me. I was like, oh my God, they make a lot more than I was making. So I busted my ass to learn to be a director. And I was directing by the time I was 21. So I started when I was 19. So by 1999, 98, I was directing on Roughnecks of Starship Trooper Chronicles, which was a CG show. So I learned how to direct on a CG show. And, you know, I've worked on everything, all animated stuff since then. And then about 2010, I started, or 2010, 11, I got a call from, Tim Miller from Blur. I had just done some stuff for them for their CG their CG shows. And he gives me a call. I thought he was going to give me notes, but he's like, hey, I got a call from Zack Snyder's office and he needs help on a show, there's a live action. He's like, you can tell what movie it is. I was like, and he's like, is it okay if I give him your reference? And I said, are you kidding me? You give him my reference. And so I met Zack, and I've been doing, so what I do is since then I've been splitting my time between doing live action storyboarding with a lot of the Marvel DC films. And then I've been also directing my Warner Brothers DC films. I've directed that as well as Marvel. And then about 2 years ago, I decided to start my own animation studio. So I'm a showrunner on a series at Trece, or at least I have 2 shows or 3 shows I'm showrunning on. And I'm directing on them as well, producing. So I've kind of worked my way up the ladder from storyboard revisionist all the way to studio owner. So and we have almost, I think, 70 employees right now. We're working on 4 shows. So it's pretty exciting.
Very nice. Wow. I was looking at your website. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Josie, what's your origin story?
I'm sorry to follow that great story, Jay. I have a very traditional kind of backstory. I always loved animation as a kid. I loved Disney especially. And so I really wanted to become a Disney animator. My parents were they were supportive as long as I got straight A's, and everything else. They would support my drawing habit. And they, I took art classes in high school I grew up in Southern California. So I took art classes at Art Center on the weekends. And, but when it came time to go to college, my parents were like, you're going to go to a real university. And so I ended up going to UCLA. I studied English like you, Gabby. I also studied art. But on the side, I still kept drawing. I'd still sneak up to CalArts and go drawing on Sundays. And so after I graduated, I went to CalArts. I begged my parents, please allow me to fulfill this dream. They did. They were really kind. And then when I graduated, probably the time you were directing, Jay, I was begging for a job. It was like Bobby said, sort of Disney was going downhill or not doing 2D animation anymore. So I was really like, oh dear, what am I gonna do? And for a while, I thought I might become a lawyer with my good grades and take the LSAT because I really couldn't find a job. But thankfully, sort of the last minute, I was able to get a job working for drawing the toy art on packaging. So I did that for a few years, and then an internship at Disney, a story internship, which is one of the best ways to get your foot in the door, unless you get that revisionist job. So I applied to the same internship as Bobby and Gabby and many folks before, and I got it. It was a miracle, I thought. Kind of back then, story was majority men. And so I felt a little bit intimidated I was I was the only woman besides my mentor. So we were 2 women in a story department of about 40. And so I thought, oh golly, I don't know if I belong here. Storyboarding is so hard. It was for me. And my mentor, Stevie Wormer, said, I'm just waiting for someone to discover that they've made a big mistake. And I said, that's how I feel. And she's like, yeah, but I've been here 10 years. And so I said, okay, then that feeling, it's normal. And then I even heard Glenn Keane say that, he was like, yeah, I keep thinking someone's just gonna discover that they've made a huge mistake and then they'll kick me out. And I said, no, wait a minute. If Glenn Keane is thinking this way, then that just might be a bunch of nonsense. And so I just worked really hard. And even though my background, like I didn't read comics avidly, I didn't know, I couldn't quote Star Wars films in whole. I was kind of an English nerd who liked Shakespeare and that sort of thing. But I worked hard and I made sure that, you know, when I boarded sequences, I really connected with the material and put myself into them. And it worked. I ended up working on my first film at Disney with Ron and John, who did The Little Mermaid. They were my heroes. And then they gave me my first shot on my first film at Disney, The Princess and the Frog. And I've been there ever since. I sort of fell into like a head of story position. You know, I think like Jay is saying, when you do your job well, then they ask you to do more. And I always felt like, but I haven't mastered the storyboarding yet, because there's so many talented people. And with story, since it is filmmaking, there are so many aspects to it that I felt like I could improve. I could improve my staging, my draftsmanship, my cutting, and my acting, my writing. And so when they said, well, why don't you do head of story? I felt like, but I haven't mastered that yet. And now as a director, I still am like, they kind of tapped me and I'm like, but I would really like to do the head of story job just a little bit better. And so now, of course, I feel completely overwhelmed. You know, I feel like it's because it's a feature, it's very daunting, but at the same time, I just sort of do what I always do, even whether I have a little scene or we're attacking story reels. You just sort of focus on what you want to fix and then just start fixing them, you know, and you might not fix everything, but I just always have this ongoing laundry list of things that I want to improve and things that could be better. And so I'll just do that next time. And then because our job is so collaborative, it's great because your first pass is not meant to be perfect. You know, the second iteration, the third iteration, it's always meant to just progress, I guess, in feature, I should say. And we have the time to do that. So that's what I'm doing just until they kick me out, I suppose.
You know what I love is just that all the different like ways everybody just kind of got into where they are now, and your different approaches to everything. It's really inspiring to hear all of that. But my next question kind of touches on a couple of things that you've already said. You know, many Filipino Americans feel pressure to be in certain professions like the medical field or the legal field. And really anyone can answer this. What was your family's response when you decided to pursue a career as an artist? Did you feel any pressure? Was there support? Anybody can answer this one. You can go ahead and start.
I'll answer this. I was talking to this earlier with the panelists, where my mom still doesn't know what I do. For the longest time, she told people I was a cartoonist. Like, she's like, oh, he draws, he's a cartoonist. And I'm like, no, Mom, I'm a director, right? And so I didn't mention this in my story. You know, I dropped out of school, right? And for the longest time, my mom kept telling me, go back to school, get your diploma. And I'm like, Mom, I know. I mean, what am I going to go back to school for animation? At the time, I was already directing. I was like, why would I do that? So she kept bugging me. So in 2000, I started teaching at Loyola Marymount. Loyola Marymount, the school I dropped out of, called me and said, could you teach storyboarding here? And I was like, okay. I was like, you do know I dropped out and I don't have a teaching credential. But they said, well, you're a director, and I had a really good big filmography, and I had done some kind of where I visited the school and I had done presentations of how to storyboard, right? Because remember, at that time, their animation program was just purely making independent films, so they didn't really have a storyboard class. And so I started teaching there in 2000. I've been teaching there for about 20 years now. I've taught a lot of people over the years. So now when people ask my mom, she's like, oh, he's a professor. So so I guess to all my mom's friends, I'm a professor. That's my story.
All right, let's see. Bobby, do you have family response to when you became an artist, or?
I mean, growing up, that's all I did. And actually my mom and dad were like really cool with it. And they were very supportive of me being a comic book artist, because that's what I wanted to be. And in fact, when I did my own comics, when I made them and did them at Comic-Con, they were very supportive. And yeah, so I can't really tell you a story of that. They didn't want me in this and they were trying to stop me. That I can't tell you that story.
You know what? And I really don't want to generalize, because there are plenty of like Filipino parents who are so supportive of the arts, and it's just, you know, and I'm just, you know, this is just to see like if the range of experience that everyone has, and you know.
Right. Yeah,
so.
yeah. That's why I didn't jump at it, because I'm like, my parents were actually kind of cool with it. So, all right. But somebody else could jump in and see if there was a different kind of experience.
I'll go. I know my mom and dad are watching. Hi, mom and dad. My parents are awesome. I have like the best parents. I love them with all my heart. My mom was always, sorry, dad. My mom was always super supportive of me. Very, she wanted to, I showed an affinity for languages when I was young. I checked out Muzzy from the library when I was a kid. So my mom was like, let's put her in language class. Let's put her in hula class, whatever she wants, we'll do it. My dad was less that way, but where my mom would always be like, I think she's going to be an artist. My dad wouldn't, he would focus on good grades, A's, A's, A's. But then I would come home from school and he would have left extra office supplies that he got from work, like on my pillow, like pencils, erasers, paper. So it was like a quiet kind of support. When I graduated from high school, I called dad from college about 2 months in and I told him, I think I want to be an artist. Like, I don't want to be a marine biologist. And dad told me, I won't help you take out any loans unless you graduate college first. So I graduated early. I graduated college when I was 19 because I was really serious about it. And it was my only way to get to art school. And then true to his word, dad helped me co-sign my loans, helped me take out loans for school. And then every single time that I had some kind of art show, a play, when I was a kid, anything like that, my parents would be front row every single night. So it was a very quiet kind of support. They definitely wanted me to be like doctor, nurse, something like that, because I'll never forget when I went home one year from CalArts, I had to explain to my dad, like, it's a really high acceptance rate, dad, or a really low acceptance rate. It's like thousands of people apply, they only take 3%. And when he heard that, he started telling people, have you heard of CalArts? It's like Harvard, but art. And then I'll never forget, I went home one year and I went to go get a new phone at the Verizon store. And the guy there was like, oh, are you the artist? Are you the animator? Yeah, your dad comes in here and talks about you, like at the Verizon store. So it was never to my face. It was not as much like, hey, we're proud of you. We want you to be an artist. That's really cool. We love that for you. But always I would hear it from other people that they were proud and excited.
Ian?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the youngest of three. Sorry, my internet, it's kicking me in and out. So hopefully I can stay through this whole thing. I'm the youngest of three. My siblings are very academically inclined. They're very intelligent and did kind of more, typical kind of jobs. And as a kid, I wanted to go to, like, I wanted to be a clown. Like, I think that was one of the things that my mom remembered. I asked when I was like 6 or 7 years old, like, oh, is there such thing as a clown school? And I mean, as a parent, she's like, oh my God, what an idiot. No, I'm just kidding, but she didn't say that. And so I think I always knew that I wanted to do something with art. And I lived down the street from a cousin of mine who was big in comics and already working in animation and things like that, had turned his garage into a comic book studio. And I had that outlet. And I think I knew that I just had that I liked it. But my parents were always, they wanted something more stable. And so I think that, like, I purposely didn't talk about it in high school. I didn't really talk about it like what my plan was. Everyone's talking about what they want to major in and where they're applying. And I was like, I don't know, I got to get this portfolio going. In my mind is kind of all I was really thinking. And it seemed like the conversation was, well, he's going to go to UCI and he's going to be a lawyer and he's going to do these things. And at the end, I was like, well, just give me a chance. I was talking to my cousin about this school, give me a chance to get in there. And if I get in, then, but give me some time. So I went to community college, and I worked on a portfolio for like six or seven. Got in. I knew what the letter looked like because I looked it up on Google, what the Art Center acceptance letter looked like. And when I opened the mail and I saw it through that clear plastic, I was taken. It was crazy. I was running around the house like a chicken with a head cut off. I just dropped the letter off. My parents are celebrating for a second. I come back inside after screaming, and they asked me like, "Did you know what the tuition at this school was?" And I was like, "That's not part of the deal." You know, like you said that I could apply to a school. It's supposedly one of the best in the country, and I got in. So like, let's figure out something. And it was a battle because I think that like, not for even an Asian parent, but any parent to put a metric to what excelling in the arts looks like. And it's tough. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a parent myself, but to divorce yourself from that thing of like, well, I want what's best for them, and I don't know what's happening. Like that, I feel like that's more or less what was going on. It's like he's having a good time, but this school is costing a lot of money, and I don't know what he's going to do with it, and I don't know if he knows what he's going to do with it. And I just, yeah. So I feel like in college, I put on a lot of weight, you know, because I was just focusing on working all the time. I didn't take care of myself very well. I didn't go hang out with friends. I didn't really do anything but just really focus on my work, because it's like this can be taken at any moment. There was one point where it was like, you know, they were trying to get me to transfer to Cal State Long Beach or just get out of there because it was expensive. I had all these things that were like, well, you know, if it's about the money, it's about the money, but like, understand that like my passion is being fulfilled. It's like I love this, and if you're gonna take that away from me, then you know, I had a shitty credit card in high school. I have good enough credit to get like a small loan to keep me floating, and I think that really that created my work ethic, and it created my relationship with my art, and the fact that they were not supportive in that way and created those obstacles, I think ultimately fueled my success, I think, or whatever that is. And so whenever I talked to students or was in school with students that had scholarships, I would always think in my mind like, oh, well, you know, what do they have pushing them? You know, because animation is not easy. And I feel like I came into the industry supporting myself. So, you know, for better or worse, I thank my parents for not making it easy.
And Josie, any other? You kind of mentioned it earlier, but yeah, how was your family?
It's funny, when Jay said his mom would refer him as a cartoonist, my mom still would refer to my job as a story artist. She would say, "You're a storyboard animator." And I just never corrected her. I'm like, well, kind of, yeah, I guess storyboarding is like animation. But they, you know, my dad was kind of like Gabby's dad, in that he would never compliment me to my face, you know. It just sort of, well, I don't know if you did that, Mr. Capili, but well, I would hear things like how my mom would say, oh, he was bragging about how you had worked on Tangled. And I didn't even know that he knew I worked on that movie. And I felt like it made me very proud, you know, because he was the one who was like, when I couldn't get a job, he was like, maybe you should apply to law school, maybe. And he was just worried, as all parents are, about stability and just having a job. So I was about to apply to law school, you know, but and even when I got into Disney, I was so thrilled, sort of like Ian, just like jumping around, so excited. They sent over the contract and I was like ready to sign it. And my dad's like, hold on, let me read that. And he looked at it and he just said, oh, this is not a good deal. You're signing your life away, all of this. And I'm like, I don't care, you know? So they're only just always looking out for me. But I know that they took such great pride in something like Disney, some of the brands, you know, and I'm always so embarrassed about like, don't make me play piano, or don't show off my drawings, or I don't care about awards and stuff, but they're always boasting. And I just know that they're very proud, and it makes me very proud, because, you know, I would have, if it didn't work out, I would have happily gone, you know, into law or anything else. But I'm just so happy that they also were like, okay, you know, but if it doesn't work out, you know, and that sort of, like Ian's parents too, it sort of was even more motivation for me. So I was the same at CalArts. I really studied hard, and, you know, I tried my best. And that's kind of where it was really scary, because I wasn't the best animator, you know, I was pretty bad, to be honest. I was a better story artist, but I was really afraid that I had kind of put all my eggs into this animation basket, and there was a huge chance that it could fail, and it failed miserably. So, but then I just was like, you know what, if I don't try, then I'll never know, and then I'll always have that regret. And so I am where I am, and I'm just very grateful that I feel like I had all these opportunities, from my parents' support to, you know, things, finances, and just family really championing me. So I'm definitely afraid of, I'm always afraid of failing. And so right now I'm like, I don't want to fail them, but they're sort of my foundation and rock as well.
I mean, they are right there when you succeed. Like, I think that was the thing that was funny, is that, you know, I take them to the first movie premiere or something that I was on, and it's, you know, telling all the relatives, oh, I knew we had it. I knew it. Oh, there he is. And it's just like,
Oh, you got cut off there for a second, Ian. Yeah, okay, so I do want to, I want to talk about Bobby's float. It broke new ground as the first Pixar work to feature Filipino American animated characters. And, you know, anytime we see representation on screen as Filipino Americans, and not just simply token Asians, it's something to be celebrated. So it was really wonderful to see when Float came out. Can you talk about FilAm representation in popular arts and your efforts to increase it, if that's something that you're trying to do, or maybe what you wish for for a Filipino American representation moving forward? And I guess I can start with Bobby, since I already mentioned you. So
yeah. I mean, as far as it's great that Float got out there and it's doing well, and it's representing Filipino American community. And I'm so I get so proud of it, because when I get messages from people who have, you know, finally seen themselves up there, and they send me pictures of their family members and themselves, and they see themselves up there represented on the screen. I'm super excited and proud of that moment. And I know all of us on this panel I want to push forward with more Filipino American representation. I mean, even Jay's doing like Trece, right? So that's amazing. Like I feel like we're coming up, and our stories are coming out there, and if Float is the start of something great, then that's awesome. I'm super proud of that.
anyone else want to speak on Filipino FilAm representation?
I mean, I feel like I sing Bobby's praises all the time with that, but I think that what I appreciate about that is that it's just a story. It's not making something out of, like, you know, oh, well, why are they Filipino, and what is it about them being Filipino? It's like, well, we're people just like everybody else. And I like that with something like that, it wasn't some kind of token, that it took some shape of some stereotype. It was very grounded. And I think with any, you know, people of color or any marginalized groups that try to tell their stories, it's always fight political question of, why do I need to hear your story? And as opposed to having an answer to that, I think that it's just looking at something like Float, and myself as a creator, as all of us, I think that we don't want to be reduced to memes. And I think that that's ultimately the challenge, is like, well, we do have stories that we want to tell, but at the same time, we have to be responsible about, what us celebrating ourselves, will do. You don't want to just be reduced to, some random cultural meme. And so I think that, like, at the end of the day, that's the struggle of any.
It's a shame he keeps cutting out because I want to hear what he says.
Yeah, to Ian's point though, like I am amazed that I'm glad that people have not come to me and go, some people have come to me and say, why isn't there more lumpia in that film? And why isn't there more tinikling in that film? And I'm glad that Ian spoke up that it's not about that. We're more than just our food, and we're more than just that. And so there's so many stories that we have to tell. And luckily there's a bunch of story artists and storytellers here that we're going to tell different stories, and it's not going to be all about dancing lumpia and
I think, Bobby, you should just stick a lumpia in your next.
I
Just
know,
for Easter egg, just
appease everybody.
or some pancit in the back or something. I don't know.
I have a little bit of a Easter egg for those people who have seen my films, is that whenever in all my Batman films, if you'll notice that he'll sometimes fight using eskrima, or you'll see Nightwing use the Filipino martial arts. I try to put that in there as much as I can because it fits, because I figured Batman, Nightwing, they've studied in the Philippines, and eskrima and the arnis, the Filipino martial arts, is one of those martial arts that are pretty hardcore. So if you ever watch my films, you'll see Batman doing Filipino martial arts.
Very nice. So do you all know each other? Is there like a FilAm sort of community in among like in the animation industry, or just maybe just among storyboarding, or is there one? Do you reach out to each other?
I mean, as one of the younger people, I will say I know all of you guys. I feel like I knew about it coming out of, well, how many Filipinos are out there? Who can I reach out to on a familial level, kind of a thing, And at the time, it was like maybe Wikipedia had a database. But yeah, I mean, I feel like from my perspective, we're pretty disparate. Like, I wish that we were closer, but yeah.
So when I started back in '96, it was on that Spider-Man '90s on Fox. There were a lot of storyboard artists that were Filipino. They were the older generation, I call them. It was like Romeo Tangal, J.C. Pons, Floro Derry, and their boards look beautiful. It was like that old school Filipino comic book style. And I remember like being amazed that there were Filipinos that were working in animation, right? I'd never seen that. So I think I used that as kind of an inspiration to be like, you know what, you can do this, right? I mean, at that time, we were transitioning from kind of what I call at the time, the old school storyboard artists who had worked at Hanna-Barbera, Filmation, and old school Disney, because this was like the '90s, the mid '90s, where storyboarding was, animation was exploding, right? And they were hiring, if you could draw, they were hiring you. So where I started and moving forward, they started hiring a lot more young artists, and this is where I came in, and there's a lot more Filipinos that came in with me, and all of them are directors now, producers, they're all over the place. And it's really interesting how, as a Filipino, like when you're looking at in the animation industry, we're all over the place. But the great thing is that we see them in design, like Ian's cousin, Jannard. I've worked with him on many of my Warner Brothers films and everything. I've worked with him for 20 years. And he's a great designer. You see people in design, in storyboards, and all over the place. And it's really, really interesting how we're such a diverse, kind of people that's kind of in this industry. And it's great to, when I talk to young people, I let them know, like, listen, you can do this. Like, the only thing that's holding yourself back is yourself, right? And I think it's great for us to have something like this to let people know that you can break in. There's no one way of doing it. You don't have to have straight A's in school. In fact, it was funny. I think Josie was mentioning this about school. Like, I was in my animation class, I was like maybe in the middle, like in a class of 15, I was maybe number 8 or 9. Like, everybody above me was so good. Like, and I was terrible animator. But you know what I did is I just stuck to it. I figured I was like Naruto, right? Where I was like, I'm not the best in the class. I'm just going to work really hard. And I think that was instilled with me the Filipino values that my parents said, you know, just work really hard. You know, I just don't sleep. But I think that's what really helped me, and it was instilled in me from my family. And I think it's great that we're seeing that now with so many Filipinos in animation and film.
So I think the thing that I'm learning, the best part for me, like learning about all of you, is that just beyond being artists, you're all storytellers. I'm in awe of how you tell your stories visually, and how you have a sort of an idea how it'll play out on screen. I want to know from each of you, what is the best part for you about being a storyboard artist? What is the best part? I'm gonna start with Gabby. What do you think?
Oh no. Oh no. I was like thinking about it. I was like, okay, what am I gonna say? What is the best part about being a storyboard artist? So far, since I just started, it's been like a year. I started November 18th of last year. So I can talk about the best thing for me in making art in general. In storyboarding, it's definitely so far, I think, the people and working with a bunch of different awesome people. Like Josie was my mentor at Disney at first coming in, and just like getting drawovers from people who are super talented and who know way more than me, and like who I ask a lot of questions at Disney, a lot of questions, and people are so open with their information once they realize that I don't know something. Like I had to ask one of my mentors at first, like, how do you do perspective? I don't know. And she was like, oh, okay, that explains so much. Here's a book on perspective. You can have it. And so that kind of thing, how open people are is really cool. In making art in general, I think my favorite part is that you can do anything and say anything that you want to say. If you have an idea, you can make that idea real. As long as you've got the imagination for it, and you've got like a hand or whatever, if you're an artist, you can make that thing come to life. That's my favorite part.
Josie, what's your favorite part of being a storyboard artist?
I think it's fun. It's way more fun than animating for me. It's way more satisfying. I think to be able to work in a room with people and throw out ideas. And what's great is that satisfaction of knowing when you see something on screen and you're like, that was my joke, or that was my idea for a shot. Like it makes me feel so proud, even though I don't have my drawings on screen, you know. I love that we laugh a lot in the story room. We get to know each other really well, and these folks become, you know, your best friends. You work really closely with directors and writers and editors, and you get to see, you know, the different parts of the film making process. And yeah, I love that. At the end of the day, it's really fun and very collaborative, and you feel like there's just an immense amount of pride, I feel.
All right, Bobby, your favorite part of being a story artist?
Making connection with people and them seeing your story and connecting to it. And it's not just you now, it's like the whole world is connecting to it, and the story's resonating with them, and you had a part of with that means a lot to me. That, yeah, connecting with the world and people, I think that's the best part.
And Jay, your favorite?
I think Josie kind of summed it all up with the great things about you're collaborating, right? I mean, animation, it's not a one-person thing. You're collaborating with so many talented people, and what Gabby mentioned, where everybody's so generous and nice and very willing to share and help you out, right? So what I love about storyboarding is it's a multi-point answer. So here's the first thing: storyboarding is hard, and I hate it. I hate it, right? I tell this in my class. I tell people I die a little with every storyboard that I do, because I literally put so much into it that I think I lose a little bit of my life, right? I lose sleep. I can't even remember what I ate yet. What I did yesterday. All I know is what I storyboarded. But on the flip side of that, though, is that every day is different. right? Even though I'm storyboarding a fight sequence, people falling in love, something, it's always different, even though it's still like same situations. And that's so it's exciting. And that's what's so enriching about being a storyboard artist, is that you are creating something that was just a concept. And a lot of times, and I mean, I don't know about those other guys, but I'll get scripts where it just says cool stuff happens, right? Like fight ensues. And I'm like, okay, what do I do here, right? And for me, it's kind of like I'm crafting something that never existed. And a lot of times I'll just stare at the wall and figure out a sequence. And when I know it working, I'll start drawing, I'll be inspired. And I get that every day. I mean, there are days that like I said, I hate, and I'll draw it and I'll hate everything that I do, to the point where like, I doubt, like, am I really good? Like, am I really doing this well? But the thing with storyboarding, it's a learning process. You're always learning. I think Josie mentioned this too, is that you're always a student and you never feel like you've mastered it. And the idea is that for me, even though I've been doing this for about 25 years now, I still feel like I'm learning new stuff. There's still stuff that I see from Bobby's stuff and Josie's stuff and everybody's stuff that I'm like, ooh, that's really cool. Now, how do I top that, right? And that to me is what makes storyboarding so like gratifying. And the last thing on a personal level is that, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been teaching a lot, and I'm helping a lot of artists over the years. And it's because storyboarding changed my life, right? When I was in school, I was going to have to drop out because my parents, it was during the recession, and my dad had to move to Hong Kong in order to pay to send me to college. I went to a very expensive school. Loyola Marymount was around the same price as USC. And that was going to be my last semester. And I was going to have to transfer and go to another school that was, you know, maybe a community college. And so getting a job in storyboarding or in animation kind of changed the direction I was going. And so when I was asked by Loyola Marymount to become a teacher, I saw that as a way for me to give back to the community and kind of, because this changed my life. And in fact, I still teach now. And every time I'm asked, are you going to teach? I want to say no, because again, I need sleep. I love sleep, but I don't sleep. But the one thing about why I keep saying yes is because I can change somebody who takes my class. They might be like me and they're not quite sure where their life is. And if they take my class and get inspired and love and see why I love storyboarding and storytelling so much, then I change one person's life. And so every year, every semester, I'm like, okay, you know what, even if I get, you know, even though I'm going to die because I'm teaching 2 classes as well as directing or doing with this or that. For me, it's one of those things where this changed my life. And if I can change one other person's life, then it's also all worth it. So storyboarding to me is a way for me to kind of show to other people, other artists, aspiring artists, animators, that, you know what, you can make it. And you don't have to just follow one path. And that I'm hoping that the people who I've taught over the years who are now producers and directors, they give back and do the same thing, right? They teach others, and they eventually, because this makes everybody better, right? Overall, it makes everybody better as an industry, you know, and also, you know, when I don't sleep at night, when I go to bed at 4 a.m. and wake up 2 hours, 3 hours later, you know, it's worth it, right? Because like I said, I die with every board or with everything I do, but I know that it's making a difference, at least, you know, for my fans and the audience and the people who enjoy my shows. They may not know who I am, but at least they'll see the quality and the kind of work that I put into it. And the last thing I want to mention, it's a little plug. So I'm doing Trece, which is an adaptation of a comic from the Philippines. And Netflix approached me and said, can you showrun this? And this is the first time, you know, they asked me, can you do this? And the first thing that came to my mind was, am I getting this because I'm Filipino? And I've never gotten a job because I'm Filipino, which, I mean, again, I have a big filmography, but the thing for me was, doing this series, it was more of a love letter to the stories that my parents told me, because this is about Filipino mythology and folklore, like the duende, the tikbalang and stuff like that. And having this opportunity, I would have never, ever have gotten, right? And the fact that I had dedicated my life to be at the certain level in the kind of work that I do, opened the doors for this to happen. So we've got a story about, you know, Filipino stories set in Manila. The characters all look Filipino, and Bobby paved it away with his short, right? To kind of let Netflix see, hey, you know what? There's a lot of interest in Filipino stories, right? And I got to say, like, this makes me the most proudest because, you know, hopefully my parents will I can say, like, look what I did. because again, this was a love letter to my culture and to my, my family. And I couldn't have done it without everything that being Filipino American. And again, this is my plug, but I wanted to just let them know that's why storyboarding to me is so important. And I'm so thankful for this opportunity because it allowed me to get to this point here and be the person that they asked to do this. I mean, hopefully people will like it, but I think this is the time that it's led to this point in my career, and I'm very thankful for it. So anyways, that's what I just wanted to say.
No, very nice. and finally, Ian, what's the best part of being a storyboard artist?
None of us should follow Jay. Jay should always answer. He has the best answers.
I'm sorry.
No. But it's very similar. Without being too over dramatic about it, storyboarding saved my life as well. I feel like it gave me purpose. I feel like
Oh no, poor Ian.
Oh no. Ian, we lost you. All right, well, we're just gonna transition. Sorry, Ian. Christine, if you want to go ahead and ask questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thanks, Erwin. Hello. The voice.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's Ian, let's have you finish up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just I appreciate the learning of it. I think that I'm very goal oriented, and I like that storyboarding is designed to keep you on your toes. If you ever feel super confident as a board artist, then like you're either doing something wrong or you just need to get over yourself, because storyboarding and filmmaking is very difficult. And I like that it's a never-ending challenge that you're never supposed to master, and it's you against yourself. As much as you can look at other artists and feel like, oh, I wish I drew better, I wish I whatever, I wish I made a movie like that person. It always comes down to you. And I team sports growing up, but I like that this is very just about me versus me. It attaches itself to like my personal life. I'm allowed to bring myself into it and kind of like hide myself in the scenes that I do, and how I interpret scripts in a way that you can't really do that as a designer. It's more obvious where I put this little insignia on something, but if you have a scene and it's emotional, you can draw from something in your life that made you feel that. And it's your understanding of filmmaking and the craft, to have that fun with yourself, to take yourself on that journey. And it's rewarding from a craft standpoint to see people resonate with it. It's
okay.
At the end of oh no, did you lose me again?
Every time you're about to tell us the secret of the universe, Ian, it cuts off.
Anyway, we'll leave it at that. I'll get there later.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Christine.
All right, thanks. Thanks, everyone. This question comes from John Watson and his sons who love art, Nick and Alex. What are classes or experiences you would recommend students take to get into storyboarding or film in general?
Take Jay's class.
Yeah.
There you go. Jay and Ian's class. Take those.
Yeah, man. No, honestly, watch movies, watch streaming content, watch any kind of content with intention. I think that it's, as board artists, or as anything, like you are what you eat, and there is no accident, that great filmmakers absorb great, bring other great things into what they're doing. And so I think that I didn't know to be aware of it and conscious of it until, deep into college and early in my career. And so I think the best thing to do is to very simply, know what you like, watch everything and make.
Secret of the universe always cuts off.
All right. You're about to tell us.
Anyway, I think you guys get it.
Let me just interject really quick here. So I would suggest for anybody who wants to be a storyboard artist is number one, like you need to know how to draw, right? So just do whatever you can to get a very good at drawing. Drawing is a technical skill, right? Here's the thing is that you don't have to be talented to be an artist, right? It's all muscle memory. So it's just like dribbling a basketball. The first time you dribble a basketball, you're double dribbling, right? You just have to train yourself to just go through the exercises and learn how to just draw anatomy, draw perspective, that kind of stuff. That's like being in an NBA, right? Particularly if you want to work in animation, you are like being drafted into the NBA, and you can't say you can't dribble. Drawing is just a part of it, right? But if you want to be good as a story artist, you have to do a lot of different things. A storyboard artist is a jack of all trades, master of nothing kind of thing, where not only do you have to be able to draw, and you also have to be able to act. You also have to know how to do, film. So I tell people to not only know how to draw and know perspective, but also like learn film. Like, there's a lot of film documentaries, watch that, directing, right? Because you are a director. And then, like I said, acting and also writing. So a lot of times I'll take writing seminars just so I know how to be a better writer and storyteller. So you have to kind of really look at it from a point of view of how good do you want to be, right? Like for the longest time, I always drew my characters standing in tall grass because I hated drawing feet, right? But you can't do that. In a new storyboard, you have to know how to do every single angle. It's not that it's impossible. It's just, as an artist, you have to look inside of yourself and ask yourself, what do I need to work on? Another thing that I recommend people to do is go out there and Google storyboard artists, right? Find storyboards that you like their work, and you can find their work online at, there are many portfolios out there, and look at their stuff and learn from it and ask yourself, okay, this is how I draw, or this is how I tell stories. Let me compare it to their stuff. Now, of course, it's going to be vast. I mean, there are guys out there that are amazing, like amazing. Bobby's one of them. I love his stuff. So the thing is that don't look at it and be like, well, I'm not good enough, right? Because here's the thing, you're always never going to be good enough in your own eyes, but you have to be honest about yourself and your art and say, how do I get my art to this position? To the point where when I look at this guy's stuff, I've already trained my senses to know what the next shot is, right? And another thing, the last thing I'll mention is when you watch films, turn off the sound and just watch it, right? Watch the films that your favorite films. I tell people, watch your favorite films. And when you watch it, and you'll notice that your favorite films tend to be the same directors. You'll notice how they're cutting, like Spielberg, or any number, James Cameron, and turn it off the sound and just look at how they're crafting their shots. Because here's the thing, storyboarding is not drawing pretty pictures, right? If you want to draw pretty pictures, be an illustrator. Storyboarding is about telling a story through the camera, through the shots, and how one shot follows another, and it's basically telling a sentence, right? You're telling a sentence with your shots. And that's what you have to understand, is that when you turn off the sound and watch a movie, that's what you're watching. You're saying, oh, I can see. Because the best stories that you watch, if you can tell what the story is without even listening to the sound, you know what the director's going for. It's all about the visual medium. And that is what I would recommend to anybody who wants to follow this, as well as, take classes. I mean, I teach a class. There's a lot of classes out here in LA, as well as at the different universities out there of storyboarding.
Word.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Marcus Johnson. Are storyboards done in collaboration with the writer or the director?
It's like a different situation every time. Like in TV, maybe it's the writer, you'll get a script, and then maybe in feature, you'll get it from the director. It's different. It's definitely different every different times.
Yeah, normally, like there's two ways I'll answer this, because I've been in both live action and animation. So in animation, you'll get the script, it's usually the director and executive producer of the show that you'll be kind of boarding for, whatever their kind of, what their tastes are. In live action, you just report directly to the director. You're like, I call it the FBI, which is kind of cool, because you have access to everything, right? And you just shadow the director, and you basically, you work closely with them. If you're working on TV primetime shows, the executive producers are the writers. So you're kind of doing what the writers want, and you're working very closely to them. So it's very different on what the shows you're on, as well as if you're on a board-driven show. Board-driven shows and TV, where you have an outline, and you have to kind of make up the dialogue and you kind of pitch it, and so it's closer to how feature is, but not as much time. They don't give you enough time for it. And so they're very different from feature to TV production to like board driven shows, but they're all share the same things, but they're a little different.
All right. This next question comes from Danielle Socha. How often, if any, do your storyboards change throughout pre-production or during production?
Mine stay because I'm the director, so I don't change anything.
Oh, really? I was going to say all the time. In feature, you just get used to knowing that things are going to change. You're sort of that first wave of soldiers at a war, and some of these things are going to go down, and that's okay. Your job is to test out the material, the script, the characters, and to make it get better. So I know it's always great when you don't have changes, but it's sometimes inevitable. Just part of the job. Thick skin, and don't take it personally. So I've had all of Tangled, everything I boarded was cut out the film, but it was, I still feel like I contributed, I boarded all the stuff that they knew should not be in there, which is good. So it can be disheartening, but if you have a thick skin, it's okay, and also you just like kind of Jay saying, like you learn something new every day, you get better every day, and that's part of the process.
I had a teacher once who told us that if you're going to get your feelings hurt when your drawings get thrown out, you're not going to be good at your job. Because your job as a storyboard artist is to help the director figure out what it is that they want, is to help them see what they do and they don't want. So just like Josie was saying, sometimes that means that they're going to cut your entire scene, and that's fine. You just have to be cool with that because that's your job. So if you want to draw beautiful drawings and keep them, you can keep them for yourself, like on your own time. But your job as a storyboard artist is to sometimes get your drawings thrown out.
Thank you. Thanks, Gabby. Thanks, Josie. Thanks, Jay. Okay, this next question is from, I hope I'm pronouncing your first name right, Hamaila Hernandez. What tools are you using now? Traditional and digital, either one of those. So what tools in the traditional realm still, and maybe even in the digital?
I try to stay traditional as much as possible. I feel like I try to at least do my thumbnails on paper and work on the characters on paper. I feel like all of the habits and everything that we learn about, I mean, unless you're strictly digital, I'm very much an advocate of maintaining traditional skill and bringing that, into digital. But the industry standard is in feature generally to work in Photoshop. Some studios are now doing Toon.
He was going to say Toon Boom, Storyboard Pro. Uh-oh. I think he's gone.
Yeah, looks like it.
Well, I guess I'll fill in for him. So yeah, it's correct. They'll be Photoshop. Some studios use TV Paint, but I like using Toon Boom Storyboard Pro myself, just because I like typing in my scene descriptions and doing camera moves. But again, what it comes down to, it doesn't really matter whether you're doing digital or traditional. It's just how you get the job done fast, right? Because they give you no time, right? And so what I usually tend to do in my process is I'll draw on the script. I'll just do my thumbnails on the script, but then I'll do the cleanups, or I'll transfer it onto Toon Boom, for example, and go that route. I tend to go digital. I started digitally probably in the 2005, 2006, mostly because I had so much paper in my house. I had so much paper of storyboards, and I got tired of I didn't want to throw them out, but I have so much paper. And here's the thing: as a storyboard artist, you're doing hundreds and hundreds of drawings, to the point where in a month's time, you'll look at a stack of board paper of 3 panels or 4 panels a page, and you're going to be like, I drew all this. This is crazy. And that's the thing. It's a lot of output. You're just drawing a lot. You're doing what would normally be, in a week, you might do something like 20 to 30 panels a day easily.
Mhm.
All right, and we'll do our last question. This one we pose to everyone. Which project have you had the most fun working on in your career so far?
Hello.
Go ahead, Bobby.
But I am also looking forward to Trece, man. When you were announced, I was like, all right, we get a Filipino guy working on a Filipino comic. Hey, man, I'm looking forward to that, man.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it too. In fact, I guess my answer would be Trece because you know, it means so much to me and where my career has led me to. A little funny story is that when we put out the call for the cast, Filipinos were coming out of the woodwork. I didn't know there were this many like Filipino voice actors out there or actors who were just dying to be on a project, you know, because it was funny. One of the actors was like, I've always had to hide my accent. And I was telling him, no, let me hear the accent. Right. So I think that would, for my answer would be that. I mean, Trece for me is one of those things I'm most proud of. And, you know, moving forward, it's one of those things where I know that for Asian, at least Filipino representation in the arts, it's one of those things where I'm hoping that this will kind of set the new standard and have more shows based on Filipino culture and Filipino stories.
I'm super excited about Trece, Jay. I saw you like a year ago at Glass Animation Festival, and I was like floored when I heard you speak and talk about this project. So I just want to say that I'm a fan.
Thanks, Josie. Yeah, it was funny that panel was so stacked, like it was a star-studded panel. I remember, and I'm just like, "Hi, I'm doing a Filipino thing for Netflix." But yeah, it was a great thing, and it was great meeting you at the time because I was like, "Oh, Josie, I've heard everybody's like name, but I'd never really met you guys in person except for like you, Josie, that time." And again, this opportunity for this, when this came about, I was like, of course I will. Are you kidding me? At least I can tell Bobby how much I loved his stuff and how, you know, and everybody who's on here, I'm like, you guys do great, amazing stuff. So that's why I was more than happy to help out on this thing. So Ian, what's your thing before your internet like cuts off? Oh no, did you? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I'm here to ask if you need board artists on Trece. No kidding.
Hey, you guys want to work on it? I mean, if you know, hopefully we'll get other seasons.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I'm sorry. Pass. That's a tough question.
No problem. Josie or Gabby?
For me, it's my short Dennis the Dinosaur was my favorite because I got to be on stage. And you know, Filipinos, we like to entertain, and I got to be on stage and like act a fool and run around, and it was just fun. It was a lot of fun to animate that one too.
We loved watching that short, Gabby. When we reviewed portfolios, we were all blown away and thought like, we've got to get her. She's brilliant. And then to find out you're Filipino, I'm just so proud.
Thank you.
For me, the most fun project I worked on was, I think I had the most fun on Wreck-It Ralph, the original. Just, it was really fun. It was a huge departure from Disney, Disney princess films and musicals. So for me, I got to work with guys who worked on The Simpsons, which was another one of my favorite shows. So I never laughed as hard as I did with those guys on Wreck-It Ralph. And yeah, that probably is my most favorite moment in the film.
Actually, I will say what I'm working on right now, I can't talk about it, but I think that this unannounced series is probably the most fun I've had because it's super rare to be able to work with your friends. And that's really, it's like a gamble because you don't want to wreck that relationship, but we've each other across the years been burned by all the major studios and have our battle scars. And now we're all together on, you know, from directing all the way down through production, we're all together. And I think whatever it turns out to be, I like that I get to share this with like close friends, because I think that like I rarely get to work with people that I know on a personal level. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, everyone. And now it's my honor to introduce our Senior Director of Programming for the Comic-Con Museum and San Diego Comic Convention, Eddie Ibrahim.
Hey, everybody. First of all, I definitely want to thank all of the panelists for being a part of this, and I gotta do a shout out to Ian for doing his best with technology. It's unfortunate. I think you had some great things to say. So I'd love to welcome you back for another panel at some time, and maybe when we can start doing live shows again, we won't have to worry about things cutting off. So thank you all so much for being a part of this. I know that these are events that we love to be able to do, because I know that the way the world is right now, people want to still hear about these things that they love. And we know that they love that content. And it's so cool to be able to hear kind of behind the scenes how that content is developed. And I really loved the fact that you're talking about telling stories. And if it happens to have a Filipino person in it, that's great. It doesn't have to be about the fact that that person is Filipino, but every person has a story to be told. And it doesn't matter what race or religion or anything. We all have the stories, and it's awesome that storytelling is so important. And it's awesome that you guys are able to get the Filipino stories out there as well. So appreciate that. Thank you. I'd love to thank Erwin for being the moderator. Thank you so much. He did great. Appreciate that. Obviously, I'd love to thank Julie, our interpreter. Amazing as always. Thank you so much for being a part of this as well. I'd also like to thank Lyle Del Mundo and SIPA for helping put this together. And of course, the group that I definitely have to thank is all of you out there that are watching this. Thank you guys so much for the support of these types of panels and the support for Comic-Con and the Comic-Con Museum. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do these types of things. And so you guys are a really, really important part of why we do what we do. And obviously the membership base for the museum is really important. If you are able and you haven't already, please consider becoming a part of the museum. We obviously are going to want to continue to do lots of great things. So please consider that. But again, thank you all for your interest and for wanting to be a part of this and being part of the panel and by watching and observing. Finally, just a reminder that this panel is going to be recorded, and we're going to be putting this up on YouTube. So for your friends that weren't able to join us tonight, be sure to let them know that they can watch it on the YouTube page. And also be sure to follow us on our social media with @Comic-Con Museum and the website, which is comiccon.org, comic-con.org/museum for more upcoming events. And, keep an eye on the Comic-Con webpage as well. We are also going to be doing some panels and events for that as well. So with that, again, I'd like to thank all of the panelists, the moderator, our interpreter, Christine and Davey for the behind the scenes work that they did. And of course, you for all being a part of the panel and watching it. Thank you so much, and we'll hope to see you again soon.